Welcome, everybody, to another live session from us at Dream Data. It's part of our show called Attributed. So, if you like today's conversation with Taz, which I'm going to introduce in a minute, go and check out our Attributed library because I think we have more than 200 conversations now with go-to-market experts. So, a lot of stuff to dig into there. Today, we're talking about what might sound like a niche, what is a niche discipline, but the impact of it might not just be niche, but actually be quite meaningful for a lot of companies. It's the discipline of, let's call it, at least back in the day, it was called landing page optimization. I don't know if that's what Task called anymore, but we'll find out later today. Uh, and the landing page is probably a term that most companies are familiar with by now, but it can have a lot more importance than just being another URL on your website. And today, to talk about with me about and educate me on this topic, we have Taz Bober, which I'm really happy that you've said yes to join, Taz, because I really like the content you've been putting up on LinkedIn, and it's been really educational to follow. And not the least because you have actually been working with more than 400 B2B companies. So you must be doing something right when it comes to landing pages. But Taz, for those who haven't been following along on LinkedIn, maybe you can do a quick introduction to yourself and the work you do, and what's the name of your company?
Yeah. All right. So Task Bober, I have been in the LinkedIn world only a year and a half, but I've been in B2B marketing my entire career. And I started a little bit earlier than other people. So roughly 15 years there. 3 of that, I was actually in AE, hardest job ever. And then working in-house at B2B companies in the marketing department, typically heading or being part of the digital and website team. In my career, I have managed 400 websites. And in the last year and a half of going out on my own, working with B2B companies on their landing pages. I've talked to 50 companies, but over 100 landing pages that I've either audited, optimized, created over the last year and a half, and lots of things that I learned that I didn't even know myself in-house. So super excited about that. Love the niche, would recommend it to anybody to just go so deep into one thing. Even for myself, I know more about landing pages now than I've ever did in my career before that, because I was very broad in the digital and website space. But yeah, so I'm excited to share some of the learnings, and I do that regularly on LinkedIn too. So anything that you want to learn about that maybe we haven't covered, all of that's available there too. So.
Fantastic. And let's pull up the Tim's comment here, which says people still use landing pages. And maybe that's a good way to start, saying like Tess, what is a landing page and why is it a particular thing on a B2B website?
Yeah, first, if we want to kick Tim Davidson out, feel free. He's mainly here to troll. I told him he's the one person I don't want attending any of my events.
Yeah.
But here's a fun fact. Actually, it's not so fun, but 44% of B2B ad clicks actually just dump people on the homepage. They don't even go to a specific landing page. And so the first step is even getting people to utilize a landing page. And there are many reasons why you should do it, but the few primary ones are when you are sending people to your homepage, and if marketers now are under scrutiny for every dollar of ad spend. The problem is I can go to your homepage, your ICP goes to the homepage, your mother goes to the homepage, right? You're going to make optimizations based on muddled, skewed, diluted data. You don't want to make optimizations based on that. And so it's going to make it harder for you to make these decisions and then have to justify the spend when you're not getting more of your ICP in the door. So that's one primary reason, is just like even just the measurement factor and being able to tie that back to your campaign spend. But secondarily, on the landing pages, I feel like marketers have a lot more autonomy to play around. So I love to call it the playground or the marketer sandbox environment, kind of similar to developers who have like a dev environment where they can mess around, make a lot of mistakes, test different things before they push it to production. This is kind of a similar thing and playground for marketers to be able to eliminate all the stakeholder BS, right? You can start to test different messaging, test clarity, test different experiences with a small subset of your true ICP, and then take that back to your to your marketing leaders, a CMO, or whoever, and say, "Hey, we tested these three things without compromising the main website, which we know you're extremely sensitive about. And here are the things that we found." And you can take some of those learnings and then apply it to your main website, and then drive your overall, quality conversations up. So I like it a lot better because there's a lot of do it now, ask for forgiveness later kind of thing. But also
Yeah.
you're not destroying, anything that your teams have worked at, or if you fail, you're not held like fully accountable. So those are the two primary reasons, but also a lot more just delivering on the ad promise. So I always use this example. It's like you're looking for pants and you see an ad for pants, and then you go to they just dump you on the homepage, and now you have to go search for the pants that you saw in the ad. You want to deliver on the promise of the ad.
I
So
think that's a really, really important one. The last one here as well says that it's like you're buying a keyword in Google. The user know what they typed in, but they end up somewhere else that doesn't even touch the keyword that the user
yep.
put in. Like, why are they, why should they book a call with you when you're not able even to treat, what did you call it again, the promise of
The
whatever
ad.
ad it was.
Mhm.
But I think in B2B particular, where we quite typically want to be so specific with our ads, like it's a Dutch company that works in the automobile industry, then you can't throw them in the front page of like a bicycle company in another country. You need to be very specific. That's a good one. I'll try to remember that the promise of the ad should
Mhm.
reflect wherever people end up afterwards.
Yeah.
But I've also seen a recent failed experiment of mine was also trying to run ads on Reddit. I think you took a screenshot, Taz, and
You
posted
did.
it. But we were just sending people to our front page. And I think 90% of the consumption of Reddit takes place on a mobile phone. And our
Mm,
front page is not optimized to receive mobile visitors from Reddit. It's just there to kind of be like a very broad explanation. It didn't even treat that it's somebody from Reddit, which is a very peculiar audience. And my
yeah.
experiment failed. But what if I had actually planned for that flow from Reddit to Dream Data, and then what happened after that?
Well, I also mentioned, because I commented on your post, and I'm like, there's so many factors by which you would consider that a success or a failure. And I think I'd commented on some of the ways you need to look at it. And you're like, ooh, maybe I need to try this again. Because I wouldn't necessarily say that it was a failure. Because one of the things that I talk about a lot is in B2B, for a low ACV product, like Hockey Stack had the statistic that was like, it takes 31 website touch points for someone to even MQL for a low ACV product, like $5,000. So the higher you go, the further the number of touch points they need and interactions with your brand. And so I wouldn't say that it was bad. Maybe yeah, we could optimize the flow a little bit and have it, because the ad that you were running too, um I recognize it immediately because I'm also familiar with your company. I'm in the LinkedIn universe. Like, so I saw it and I was like, oh, this is hilarious. Like, I love The Office. I love Dream Data. I know both of those things. But if you're thinking about it from a first touch point perspective, and someone's like, oh, this is funny, whatever, you're not going to get a bunch of direct conversions or anything
No.
out of that. What you are going to get is, or what you should be looking to is, what is the density of ICP that has interacted with that ad or have come to your website as a result from that source. And maybe they don't convert on the first time or 31st time or the 70th time. But if it was a touch point at some point where they decided, oh, I'm curious enough about this company that has a sense of humor and I want to understand what they do, but they're just not automatically in the market for something like that.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of ways. I think that's why I always talk about like consumption being the first metric we need to look at. Are they consuming the information? Have you created awareness? Are they understanding what you do? So I would not say that it's a failure. In fact, I would consider it a success because in B2B specifically, everything is the sea of sameness. And so when you see something that's a little bit different, it was enough for me to post about it. And I feel like if you're in marketing, especially in B2B, if you're talking about it, it's a win. Like someone other than your company is talking about it, it's a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was talking about it, like, and I talk to B2B like most of the people who follow me are
Yeah.
B2B marketers who you probably sell to as
Yeah.
well. And now
I,
they know.
I keep that screenshot I took of your LinkedIn post close to heart, because then I know it wasn't completely off.
Yeah, it wasn't a failure, I promise you.
Um, I'm wondering what's the best way in to kind of describe what should be, what are the elements that needs to be on a landing page? Kind of what is the,
Yeah.
if you didn't have a computer and you couldn't show screenshots, how would you explain to people what should be on a landing page that is that is to deliver on the promise of where the consumer came from?
Yeah. Now let's put the ads aside for a second and just assume that we are at a point where you have an audience that's generally problem aware. And you need to just describe to them what your product does and all of these other things. So the biggest thing for me, because everybody goes through this, I see landing page people all the time who are like, the hero should have this framework or whatever. And I'm like, okay, you need to step back from that for a second and understand what a B2B buyer needs to go through. And when I was in house, I had budgets anywhere between 1 million to 10 million just in my little side of, digital and website, depending on how big the company was. It was very nice having the $10 million budget. I mean, I didn't even know what to do with it. I was like, okay, spend money everywhere, like a Little Wayne video. So anyway, but even though 70% of that went towards marketing efforts, 30% of that was held for vendors, tools, partnerships, agencies, that kind of stuff to help me keep my ship running. And so one of the things I realized very quickly is everything that I did as a marketer, I hated as a buyer. Absolutely hated, right? They trap me in a page, they'd give me some vague information. So then what would I end up having to do? I have to text a friend. It's like a game show. It's like, hey, have you used XYZ person? I have to go on Reddit and I'm like, hey, what do you know pricing for this company before I even decide to talk to them? And then get wildly different answers. But the thing is, the process I had to go through internally, I had this deck that was this business case deck. And it had these core elements in the business case, right? That I had to populate and then pitch to my VP or my CMO or then finance or IT and kind of talk to them about all of these things. And so when I talk about elements of a landing page, I'm talking about what are the elements of this champion or buyer's business case that they need to put together, and how can you make it easy for them by putting that all on the landing page, that they don't have to go on this goose chase for information that you already have as a company, right?
That's great.
So yeah, so the business case is the first thing that I map out for all my clients now
Yeah,
too.
so just to like repeat what
Yeah,
you're saying, it's the business case of somebody acquiring a product like yours. They would
yeah,
have some internal document they would need to fill. That's a
yeah.
great way of thinking about what should be on the landing page.
Yeah. And I had a template, and that business case template, I've taken to 3, 4 companies with me and then just switched out the branding because I had to do that all the time. So sometimes it would happen both ways, right? Whether it came to me from my VP saying, hey, we need a new translation tool. Go get me some options. We'll talk about it during our next one-on-one.
Mm.
That's one way it happens. I'm still the director level who's having to go do all this work and research, right? Then there's a flip side. I'm close to the product. I'm close to the digital and marketing side. And I'm like, shoot, you know what? The teams are doing this manually. I should really make the case for a translation tool. And then everything still ends up in that stupid business case document that I had to create. And it was just like this 5 to 8 slide deck of why I'm proposing something, what the problem is that we're facing. Here are my recommendations for options that we could pursue, their cost, timeline involvement of the implementation, how quickly that happens, who are the other stakeholders involved, and then please approve this VP, CMO, whoever, right? That was the deck that I would just take with me, right, on this like internal tour. And that is what your buyers are doing. They have to make a business case. I have clients who meet with me, and I help them make the business case to sell me internally, the champion, right? So that's how we need to think about structuring a landing page. Like, yeah, hero, blah, blah, blah. We can talk about all of those like key elements. Everyone kind of understands foundationally, like these are the blocks that exist. But the content is so important, and you have all the information that they already need. Don't make it a longer process for them. They're already dreading having to put together a business case. Now they go all the way down to like pricing. Shit. Now I got to go talk to them, but I don't know if I can afford them. And
Yeah.
so what are they doing? They're trying to get just even a starting range to understand what are my options. So when we're looking at a landing page, I always think about what are they collecting from a business case perspective, and it's going to be, okay, what is this product? What does it do? What are the problems that it solves? Do they match the problems that I am having? Right. Second, how does it solve them? And you don't want to see like this feature dump of like self-serve dashboards. It's like AI powered. You're like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. You have to talk about it contextually as like product stories. You got to talk about them contextually and how they actually solve some of those problems. And then you're going to look at, well, have you helped other people like me? So credibility and specificity of the proof that needs to be on the page, handling all those sales objections. So all the stuff that you hear in calls, the FAQ section, and I've found this from like dozens of landing pages with my clients, most interactive with block on the page. There was 15% of all clicks for one of my clients was on the fourth FAQ all the way in the bottom of the page. So
Nice.
it was such a big aha moment, and we made that its own block because obviously there was so much interest in that part. So that's again a consumption signal we're paying attention to.
Yeah. What should people put in the FAQs? And very, what would like highline? What should people put in their FAQs on a landing page?
Yeah, 100%. What either if you're more like product led, it's feedback or questions that you see maybe on Reddit, that people are asking about tools, or something that keeps coming up in the customer feedback, or like the forums and things like that. If you're more sales led, then 100% what's coming up in your sales calls, putting that in there. But what ends up actually happening in the FAQs for B2B companies is, what is attribution software? And you're like,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
they obviously already know that's why they're
yeah,
there.
absolutely.
um or why are we the greatest company on earth? No one cares, and stop paying people for awards.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? So no one care. Answer the questions that they are actually going to already ask in the sales calls, and you already know. Address those objections up front. And then finally, at the end, you have to address what the sales process is going to look like. So one of the other things I had to tell my VP was, hey, she's like, okay, so what's the process to get started? And I'm like, well, I think I have to have a call with them. I don't know if I'm going to get a demo right away. So then I can manage expectations if they're managing expectations for me. So
that's
on the landing
quite.
page,
I
you
didn't
want to
think
talk
about
about,
that before about describing what's coming up after
yeah,
you submit. I think at least our book or demo page doesn't contain any information about like somebody's
yes,
actually gonna reach out to you. You're
yes.
gonna have a call, like all this kind of information. That's a great advice as well.
Because, and especially you're in Denmark, I'm sure you're serving a lot of like EU customers, right? And what I tell people now is people are more privacy focused. That is just the nature, no matter where you live. But specifically, if you're also in Europe, people want to understand how you're utilizing their data. And we as marketers are like, okay, we got a checkbox, we're good. We got cookie
Mm.
consent, like we're compliant. But showing true respect for someone's information is saying, hey, if you decide to engage with us, we respect your time. And here are the like 2 or 3 steps immediately following that you can expect to happen after you contact us. We will reach out to you within 24 hours. You'll meet with an expert on our team. We'll want to talk about your specific use cases. Then we'll schedule a custom demo for you so that it's relevant with a
Mm.
solution engineer on our team. And then from there, if you like it, we'll either set up a POC or we'll help you build a business case if you want to move forward, or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But just setting those 2 to 3 steps is just, it helps disarm prospects because they're like, okay, I know what to expect. I'm not just going to get hounded and thrown into some nurture, right? This is exactly what's going to happen. And then it's up to you and your sales team to deliver on that promise. And that's the first step of that credibility that comes from that.
absolutely. I'm sorry, but Tim has another comment.
Okay. Go do something else.
But I think we should actually flip it reverse first. Tim is asking, what are the top 3 most common changes you make or recommend to landing pages that have the biggest impact? But before you answer that question, I would love to ask you, what are the kind of 2 or 3 worst things people do on the landing pages that actually make them fail? And then we take the good things afterward.
Mm. For B2B, the biggest thing is we treat them like B2C landing pages. However, I will say this, a B2C landing page actually has a lot more information than a B2B landing page does. I shared an example a few weeks ago of what a standard landing page looks like. You can even close your eyes and picture it, right?
Mhm.
Form is right up here, some 3 lines of text, thinking like that's enough for them to get to sign up, some awards, lists of features, and yeah, and then book a call. And
Mhm.
they trap you in this experience, and you haven't answered a single question. You don't even know if this accounting software for small businesses or enterprise, because those needs vary widely. You're making them burn the extra calories to find out information about you that you already have. That's the annoying part. And the CTA was, get a product tour today. Sir, this isn't like Taylor Swift. Like, no one's lining up, trying to banging down your doors, trying to like buy tickets to see your product. Like, no one cares that much. You got to do the convincing about why they need to see your product, right? And already showcase some of that. So I think that landing pages should be 90% give, 10% ask, especially in B2B. You need to show them the value. And I don't mean, there's a lot of people who are like, we got to agitate the pain, da da da. I'm like, no, there's no room for manipulation in B2B, because I might be miserable, but I'm working hard to try to get buy-in for this. If you twist the knife, you're just making me more miserable, but like I can't make it move any faster, right? So I just think that we need to be clear about who we are, what do we do, what problems we solve, and who we are for specifically. And then everything on the page needs to be relevant to stuff, right? Sometimes we have the same 3 testimonials floating on the entire website. Like, every page has the same 3.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you claim to have helped 2,000 companies and you're only showing me 3. So can you show me ones that are more relevant to, if this is a page for attribution software for marketers versus attribution software for sales, I need to see the credibility from those groups of people, right? So specificity, clarity, and 90% value, 10% ask. Have the ask all the way in the bottom. It sounds counterintuitive, but the people who make it there are the ones who are likely going to take action. And honestly, they're probably not even going to take action on the landing page itself. They will go through their process, do some research, probably come back to your main website and sign up at that time. And then
Hmm.
how many times we're sitting there going, wow, direct was so high this month. I wonder what happened. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny with the, yeah, it's counterintuitive that you would hide the form in the bottom,
yeah,
but for you to actually be able to actually consume all the the content that is on the page, you would actually have
yeah.
to place it there. Um, when would you say you should consider putting like a page on a website into the landing page bucket, or when is it relevant to actually like think more deliberate about what is on a page, like as a receiver of traffic? Is it any pages that you should think about as landing pages, or are there certain specific places on the website you should definitely care about?
Um, no, I wouldn't consider any page on the website a landing page. The whole thing is that it needs to be this isolated experience. I think someone said something about ranking or peering for, AI tools or something
Yeah,
like that. So when I talk about landing pages, I'm talking about campaign specific landing pages, right? And for me specifically, it's going to be your paid, like LinkedIn, Google, Reddit, that kind of stuff.
yeah,
But also email pages can go to specific emails can go to specific landing pages and things like that. So for me, as long as there's relevance, but what happens is when most main pages on your website are just probably too vague because you've had 5 stakeholders provide their input, and then it's just this like pot roast, and there's no clarity on there. So I always say Like, let the main website be what it is, because you're not going to win that battle. But then
Mm.
you create a landing page, and sometimes people are like, well, I don't know what to put on it. And I'm like, if you want an MVP version, take your product page, clone it, put in the changes that you want, and have that be the first iteration, and have that be the ones that are ranking for things like AI tool, AI software, whatever, the more mid to bottom of funnel type
I
searches.
think that's great practical advice. Like, you don't have to design a new page.
Yeah.
You just duplicate it and then replace the elements that are there that fits more according to the campaign that you're sitting with.
Yes. And hide it. Yeah. Like,
Let's
you
follow
don't
up
only
this.
get the campaign.
Oh, sorry for interrupting. So
Yeah.
Taryn is asking another good question here. So Taz, how do you measure conversion? Meaning, how much value focus do you put into on-page short-term conversions versus the customer level conversions with in B2B, meaning moving the deal to closed one
Yeah.
100 days later?
This is my favorite question. So thank you for asking it, because I am probably the only landing page person on LinkedIn who just hates conversions as a metric of success. And I don't think that in B2B we should be measuring success with on-page conversions, because of that same statistic I shared with you, where for low ACV product, it could take 30 plus touch points. So what we're trying to do is optimize for more consumption of the information that we're putting out there. So if we're optimizing more for them consuming the information, then we have to put valuable information out there, first of all, but we hide that, right? And then we're like complaining about long deal cycles. The reason it's taking so long is because they have to get information from somewhere else that isn't you, and you're not controlling the narrative. So yes, as much as I would love for conversions to go crazy on the landing page that I do for my clients, I tell them straight up, it is the first conversation we have, and I'm like, you're going to see conversions decrease, because what I want users to do on your landing page is to disqualify themselves, right? That is the first thing. So would you rather 10,000 leads come in and they're garbage, so you can light up the dashboards with hope? Or would you rather have 100 dense ICP people coming in, having conversations with you that are far more meaningful? And so what we end up looking at are the right metrics, which is, okay, if I care about them coming, the touch points, making sure that we're reducing the number of touch points they need by giving them the information. That's first step, right? Give them the information they need. That already helps them lower the number of touch points that they need, because they're not having to run around trying to get more information, and they're getting it from you, the source, right? Second, then, is on the landing page, they may visit once, but then is your traffic on your main website incrementally going up? And is that the right people coming to the website? So there are a lot of ways you can do this. I mean, obviously there's a ton of RB2B, whatever, Sixth Sense. If you have Clearbit, anything of those will tell you whether the right accounts and right people are coming to the site. So you already have these like positive signals and indicators that things are moving in the right direction, right? And then if you go, then you're looking at the meetings that are coming in. Are the meetings coming in? And I actually stole the light up dashboards with hope. I think it was Chris Walker who said it, but it's fine. I'll take credit. He's fine. He's got enough clout. So
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you're looking at direct traffic that's coming in on your main website, and you're like, okay, my meetings are going up over time from the time I've launched this like clarity campaign,
Yeah.
right? And now we're having more meaningful conversations. Are your salespeople experiencing less friction? That's another question to ask, because you're
Yeah.
handling a lot of the objections up front. And then are the deals closing faster? So sometimes the funny thing is my engagements are only like 90 days. So I always tell my clients, I'm like, please report back to me, because the average deal cycle is like 6 months. And so sometimes it's like, okay, I don't get to hear about it doing better until many months later. And my clients will come to me and say those things. And I'm like,
I'd like
hey,
some credit here.
I'm like, hello, is it working? Is it not working? And
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so, and then if we're looking at multiple touch points, also, if say on average, your return visitors on your site is like, they come to your site on average 2 times.
Yeah.
Are they coming 3 times? Are they coming 4 times? And then looking at some qualitative data, heat map data. If only 30% are making it to the bottom of the page, which is the B2B average, is it
Mm.
now 40% for you? Is it
Yeah,
50% over time? These are positive, negative indicators of, am I providing the right information? Oh, they're interested in the fourth FAQ. These are all things we can control, right? We can't force our product down someone's throat, but what we can do is control the information we're giving them, how we're giving it to them, and using that feedback loop to continue to give them the information that they care about.
absolutely. Can we go a little bit deeper into the ways that you can help the user disqualify themselves? I can probably guess that it's something about saying this product is for B2Bs in a country or in a certain industry. But what kind of elements is it that you can tweak on a landing page to make sure that it's really clear who's it for and who's it not for?
I mean, content is going to be your best tool, right? The
Yeah.
actual copywriting on the page. And so the key elements is answering the like who, what, why, when, how, right? And so I actually want to do a post, and it's in my backlog, but I want to do a post that's uh, the blocks you should have on your landing page if you have the balls for it, because most companies don't. And one of them is, I think Commissar does this, but they have a who we are not for.
Mm,
And I love that because it's just saying, hey, if you're earlier, if you're whatever, I'm not for you. I mean, you and I just talked about this before we jumped on, and you said, I love the specificity of your tagline.
mm,
And it's like, why wouldn't you just say landing pages for B2B? Because now I'm going to start getting solopreneurs, service companies.
yeah.
So I'm talking about B2B SaaS. Why don't you just leave it at B2B SaaS? Because there's pre-product market fit. I can't help you. You probably shouldn't
Mm,
be running paid.
yeah.
So when we're saying growth stage B2B SaaS through paid campaigns, we are establishing qualifiers in there where they are checking in their head, do I fit this? Do I not? Is this the right option for me? And both sides aren't wasting time, resources to do that, right? So copy on the page is going to be your best bet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost every landing page I do for my clients is I have this what I call the eyebrow. And so the eyebrow copy right above the hero or right above a section that will say, okay, application security for enterprise infosec teams. You read that, you're automatically like, well, we're kind of a small shop. This isn't for me.
Mm,
Bounce,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
One sentence can do that for you. You can even do it to where it's like for small teams under 50, for teams who have 2 service reps. You can get even more specific. Healthcare,
Mm,
right? So we are managed IT services for healthcare organizations. Okay, well, a government organization is gonna be like, well, that's not me,
mm.
so I'm out.
And there's really good general go-to-market advice in what you're saying here, Taz, because if you can't really elaborate what this is in your business, you probably have a like a go-to-market strategy problem as well. Like who are you selling to? Why are you
Yeah.
selling to them? Like what's the messaging that you need to put to them? So it connects all the way up to kind of how does your business go to market? And if you just answer we're for everyone, well then you probably don't have a plan.
You don't have a plan at all. And it's funny because in the beginning, I don't do this anymore. But I used to, when I used to build the buyer's business case, that's kind of my first phase. I decided to do it in like a workshop setting with a few stakeholders. Worst mistake ever. So I have the VP of marketing. He has his product marketer, his growth marketer. Everybody's on the call. And I said, so if you had to describe what you do and who you do it for in one sentence, what would you say? Literally the first question. It was an hour and a half of arguments. He was so upset. He sent me a message later and he's like, we got a lot to figure out before we get back to you and start building these landing pages. These are for campaign landing pages. Okay. So then they realize, oh, this is a problem. And so I decided I'm not doing workshops anymore. I will just tell you what I think that you do based on the information that's out there. And you will react and say, oh my gosh, you're hallucinating or you're not, or whatever the case may be. But that ends up being a better thing. Sometimes it's eye opening where they're thinking, oh, like I'll give you an example. We had one of my clients is like, they call themselves security questionnaire automation software. Okay, mouthful. But then we found out that the actual ICP, what they're searching for is vendor risk assessment software. And so
Mm,
Google's natural algorithm isn't even going to pick up that those are similar things. So we tested vendor risk assessment software on the landing pages and saw far more density of ICP just based on what we were calling it. So I'm like weird. I mean, I have lots of thoughts on like categories and like us sounding fancy and things like that. If your category is like specific and that's what your people, like your actual customers would call you or put you in the bucket in their mind, that's kind of the thing you need to gravitate towards before you're like, we are the number one revenue platform. What is that? What is it? Because guess what? Airtable says they're a revenue platform and they're project management. So like, what are you? I don't. You should never have your buyers burn extra calories to figure out what the hell you even are. Like that shouldn't even be a question,
Yeah,
right? So yeah.
that's really good. So I think I at least always like a good rule of thumb. So on landing pages, maybe at the moment, just kind of what are kind of your favorite elements, or kind of what are the things that you typically recommend people? I don't know if that's part of the consulting service, but like high
Oh.
level, what are kind of the things that you, that's just not forever, but at the moment you recommend people to implement on landing pages?
Well, one thing, so I structure my entire engagement really around the marketer because I was that in-house marketer who was struggling. I had 45 projects. I had like a crap ton to do. And I think there's this misconception then because it's like, oh, I got to deliver on the promise of my ad. Okay, well, I have 60 campaigns. So I need 60 landing pages. So you can dig a hole for yourself there. But there's a way to be relevant and efficient at the same time. And so I'm like, you only really need like a core set of like maybe 5 or 6. And if you go back to that business case of what are the questions they're asking, right? So what are you? What problems you solve? How do you solve them? That's kind of like a first touch point. Like that's a page that can kind of outline high level, your product credibility, those things, right? And you're thinking about testimonials, what's the sales process, that kind of stuff. So there's these set of blocks that probably can repeat across multiple landing pages where a marketer doesn't have to sit there and create it from scratch. So those elements are typically, I use this analogy in my business, which is the Chipotle framework. Do you have Chipotle in Denmark? Am I going to butcher this?
No, but I like Chipotle whenever I'm in the US. So
Okay. So
I'm
you
with
know
you.
what it is.
Yeah.
I always shoot myself in the foot because I think I'm being really cute and I talk about Chipotle and then I talk to a client who's not in the US and they're like, what now? And then I have to make up some like different reference and it's terrible. But for those who are not familiar, Chipotle has the smartest business like model ever, which is they have these set of the same ingredients, right? And if you walk in and I walk in and I want a taco and you want a burrito, they're like, you bet. And they give us the same ingredients, just packaged up a little bit differently based on the buyer's intent. And I think that we can approach landing pages the same way. Most times when people are thinking about, I got to create a landing page, they're thinking, okay, landing page by landing page. This landing page is a comparison one. This landing page is a product one. Cool. But there's a lot of elements that you can reuse and repurpose. So I encourage you to build them by blocks. Build a tray of blocks where you're saying, okay, the wrap or the taco or whatever, that's kind of like your hero sections. And what are the questions that your buyer's asking? If they're looking at dream data reviews, you would have kind of a trust landing page that's like over 20,000 companies, B2B companies trust dream data for attribution, whatever. And then you go into really leaning into some of those proof elements. But guess what? The way you solve the problem isn't going to change that much. Your sales process isn't going to change. Your FAQs aren't going to change. You can reuse a lot of those blocks and you make the wrap or the burrito or the taco or the shell or whatever the vessel is, which is your hero. That's the only thing you need to really rewrite, right? And the other part I love about landing pages is I don't have to worry about this like duplicate content and all the stuff because it's not indexed. So
Yeah.
you literally can reuse, repurpose based on what the buyer is asking. But a lot of those things don't necessarily change. And so create once, dividends forever. So
Mm.
that's kind of how I look at those elements. But typically those elements are a couple of hero blocks that will vary based on user intent or the ad intent. And then you have a problem block, a solutions block. And this is where you're going to talk about themes and how they work together. credibility. So I always do a bucket of proof. So I do owned, so ones that you are getting from your customers directly, and
Yeah.
then sourced can be source ones from agnostic places. Like, I mean, I don't know how agnostic G2 and Capterra and stuff are, but if you have some there that you can source, you can bring those in, because
Yeah.
guess what? They're going to go look. They're going to go look, and you're just consolidating a lot of that information for them on the landing page. And then the sales process and the FAQs. Those are the core blocks. Sometimes with clients, just depending on who they are, if they are very vertical specific, like I have a client who are like, they only work in regulated industries. And so we have a block that kind of showcases the regulated industries. So it's like, we work across these extremely tough
Yeah.
verticals: healthcare, education, legal, finance, right?
Good luck.
And we call them out.
Yeah.
So for that client, it makes sense to kind of list out the verticals. For another client, it's a new product, but the whole thing is about how easy it is for companies to set up Shopify landing pages. So we actually have a process block that shows this is how easy it is to set it up. So there are these core blocks that kind of go around it. And then depending on your product or company, we might supplement and add some other stuff, not supplement, complement, and add some other stuff to just further, what they need to understand about the product. And one of the new things that I'm going to be doing is working on a partnership with some people who build interactive demos, and putting those types of things and including that in my engagement fee, so that companies actually have good assets to put on these landing pages.
Yeah, we've been experimenting with that as well, and customers seem to quite like being able to like click through how the
Yes,
product
click
actually
around.
works. Andreas asking here, can you talk more about the problem blocks?
Yeah.
Not a sentence I've ever said before. B2B landing and indexed pages don't really use them much.
I
So what's the
know.
problem block?
Wouldn't it be amazing if we talked about what our customers were feeling instead of us, me, myself, and I, right? Like, imagine if you went on a date with someone and you're sitting there and all they're doing is saying, so listen, I have a ton of degrees. And yeah, I have a ton of degrees and awards. And then I went to this camp. Wait, hold your thought. I'm not talking to you yet. And then this is what other girlfriends have said about me. So I'm really a catch. And yeah, so if you want to hang out, just hit me up, and I'll make sure to try to give you some time of day, or maybe I won't get back to you. Who knows? Worst date of your life, right?
Yeah.
But the best relationships are the ones where there's a two-way conversation. That's really hard on a landing page. And don't come at me with chatbots, because that's also terrible,
Yeah,
terrible experience
definitely.
if not used correctly. And I don't like a lot of distractions on landing pages. But I think there's a mind shift that needs to happen where you're saying, okay, am I going to put myself first, or am I going to put my buyer first? And you have to understand that there is opportunity to talk about you, and they are interested in the things that you have to offer. But you first have to show them that they are validated, they are seen, they are heard. And so the problem block, I love. Most people will go the extra mile and try to make it pain agitation, which is terrible. Don't do that. Don't be like, oh, your stuff sucks, and you are drowning and you're going to get fired. No one wants like a doomsday patrol, but what they want to understand is, hey, you're doing the stuff manually right now, and it's taking you away from doing, this, where this could be automated or something to that effect, right? Or we also do something where it's like this block. Kanika's on this thing, so she knows, she works with me on the stuff. But we also did one that's like, here are the other approaches and options you have in the market, agnostically, as if we were telling a friend, hey, if you wanted to build landing pages, you could do it manually. You could clone it. You could do something like that. Or you can build it from scratch. That's kind of harder to scale. So here are some things to watch out with each of those approaches, right? You could use a template and that'll get you up to speed really quickly, but you may miss some key information, or it might be too rigid. So as if you were giving advice to a friend, you're just going to tell them, hey, here are some problems that you're facing. We get it.
Yeah.
That's why we exist as a company, because we identified these problems in the market and with the alternative options in the market. And this is why we could potentially be better or different, or something different for you to try.
That's really great. Like that's a way of like demonstrating we know who you are and we know what the landscape looks like.
Yeah.
You can trust us because we've done these things ourselves, and you can go the DIY route if you want, but
Yeah.
we've built this service to do these things for you.
And just think about it from a business case perspective, because my bosses always ask me for, like, give me a few options, cheapest to most expensive.
Yeah.
So when I was proposing, like, I think it was, we were going to do like progressive form fills or whatever. Like, we wanted to do like form enrichment back in the day with Zoom Info. And I really wanted it, but Zoom Info is expensive. And so I said, okay, here are three options to implement a better form experience. One, we could cut down the number of fields that we need, to qualify somebody. Obviously, the business doesn't want to do that, but it's free and we can do it fairly quickly. The second option is we can do this progressive profiling. It might take multiple visits though before we understand that. Three, we could use a single form field with Zoom Info, and it's going to cost us $50,000 a year, but they're going to do all the enrichment in the back end. We will actually get more people fill out because we're lowering friction. I had to do that. So now imagine if on the landing page there were, do you want more conversions on your page with less friction for your buyers? Okay, you have some options for forms. You can just lower the number of fields. Okay. You can do progressive profiling, which is out of the box with most marketing automation platforms, or you could do, Zoom Info enrichment. Or not. You could use tools for enrichment. You're not calling yourself out at this stage. And then you go into, why XYZ companies use, form enrichment, and then you can go into the solution and how it kind of addresses some of those problems that you're facing.
That's
So, like giving advice to a friend.
super good. Okay, Tess, time is flying by. So let's like change the chapter and say now you have actually put up your first landing page as good as you could. How do you then deal with the optimization phase? Kind of what's the process from first draft live to what are the things you can do to kind of monitor the results and people would typically think about A/B test, but how's the way to improve a landing page that is live today?
Yeah. So first of all, you got to set aside time to go back to them, because I used to do that, right? Like, it was a checkbox. My landing page is live. I'm moving on to the next project on my 45 project list. So the first thing is coming back to it. You don't need a lot. So sometimes people think that they need these like super fancy A/B testing tools. If you have them, great. You can test probably a lot faster. You can test at the same time. But if you don't, that's okay. The only things that you really need to do like a ratchet basic level of optimizations and testing is, one, your website analytics, which you probably already have through GA4 or any other website tool. And then some heat mapping tool. Most of them are free for like 2,000 sessions, but that's enough, like 2,000 sessions per month. That's enough for you to make decisions. It's a good sample size to then make optimizations based on it. So I need people to look at more of how people are consuming information on the page. Don't worry about conversions. You're probably not even going to see a lot of conversions. But what you're going to do is, like the example I used before, where that client had the fourth FAQ getting 15% of the clicks. Conversion data is not going to give that to you. Marketing automation platform data is not going to give that to you. Even click data is not going to give that to you because it wasn't taking them somewhere else, right? So heat map data is going to show you how people are consuming information, which blocks are most impactful, what information they need more of, if there are technical issues. So I encourage you for 30 minutes once a month, right? Or every 2 weeks, 30 minutes with your coffee before you respond to your boss's Slack messages or all the emails and you get sucked in. Just go in there, watch a few recordings, see how people are consuming the site and consuming the page, and then look at your heat map data. And what I would do is, I call this the self-building testing roadmap, where when you're creating the landing pages, and you know how we all like argue over what hero, like what we should say in the hero, and people are rewriting it and they're rewriting it 100 times. What we do is we give our clients options for 5 to 6 titles already. Well, they pick the one that they like. Awesome. Now you have 5 in the bank to test on other variations of the future. So help yourself and be more efficient by coming up with some variations while you're doing that. People always ask me, what is the best CTA to put on there? I'm like, it does not matter. Just be direct. Don't do like something that's like learn more or whatever, but whatever your ask is, just be direct, make the single ask across the page. That's less important than the actual information that they're looking at. And then the other tip I always tell people is if someone just skimmed the page and only read the headlines, they should get all of that information in there without reading the subhead as well. So looking at heat map data and then optimizing based on that. So when we saw that fourth FAQ, we made it its own block higher on the page. And this was a tool where you could just buy it right on the spot and lifetime license. So when we moved that block up, we saw purchases, not even free trials. They didn't even want the free trial. They were like, "Oh, I'm good." That was the only objection, and they literally bought it. And we saw like 265% increase in purchases just from like moving one block and making that the star of the show. You would never get that in
That's amazing.
any other tool. So I really encourage you to just watch how people act, and a lot of people are using like surveys, and you can use Winter and things like that to test it preemptively. But I'm going to tell you one caveat on that. As a person who's filled out many, many, many surveys, I always, when I'm on a survey, I'm posturing, right? I'm like, they're asking me for my opinion, and I'm going to make the very smart,
Yeah.
logical decision. But
Yeah.
when people get on landing pages and they think no one's watching, that's when you're picking your nose. That's when you're acting in ways that you would not say that you would act, right? So what people say and what people do are two different things.
Hmm.
So I encourage you to watch what they do.
You said a lot of interesting things there, Tess. And I think one thing is that you really need to care about the big headlines, because if people are very busy, so the wording you put in there really matters. And the things in the text blocks, it needs to be correct, but many times it's not going to be consumed. So get the important stuff in the headers. Just to be very specific for people, what are the couple of heat map vendors at the moment that you point to, that anybody you want to plug?
I just use Hotjar just because I have for so many years. I know there are better ones out there, but see, again, you're going up against someone who just has the habit of using a tool, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's something that we're always going to run up against.
yeah.
I'm tool agnostic, so
Okay.
I have clients who use Microsoft Clarity. I'm fine as long as you have a heat map option available. You can see some recordings. Like, I don't care. I actually think Hotjar used to be better back in the day than it is now, but there's Crazy Egg, Microsoft Clarity, Hotjar. There's another one like Trust something or the other. So yeah, so there's a few there. It doesn't matter. Pick what's best for you. Most of them offer the free. I like Hotjar because you get the 2000 sessions free.
Yeah,
I'd run it on my own website and see how people are interacting with my stuff, where they get stuck. It's one of my favorite things to do.
yeah,
It's really great. It's like watching Netflix, but you tell your boss that you're
yeah.
working.
It's been a while since I've had it installed on our websites, but actually now that you talk so warmly about it, I think it's time to try again.
Look at it again. Yeah.
Tess, if we're trying to kind of distill a little bit what you've said here today, what would be kind of like the few most important things for people to take away about B2B landing pages?
I think the biggest thing is make it about them and not you. And so I know that's super hard because, we have these like best practices and these things that have been taught to us over time. I had to untrain myself from a lot of that. And I would say like what separates an expert or whatever compared to a non-expert is just the ability to look at something, take in the information, and then ask yourself, is it valid or true? So approach things with skepticism, because that's going to actually get you further than just trusting blindly. And with your landing pages, I just want you to think about everything that someone tells you is best practice and understand that best practice will make you average at best. And so you need to look at that and say, as a buyer, would I be okay with this? And then put it in a context of something you are purchasing. If you look at an Amazon product page, the Amazon product page, the first thing you're going to look at is pictures of the product. the title of the thing is going to tell you what it is, right? It's going to give you a short description. And then as you go down further on the page, you see further product descriptions if you want to look at that. You also have common questions asked by people. You also see credibility and reviews that you can search for based on specificity. So if you want to model something, model it after how B2C does theirs, because you would not purchase something without all of that information. You know what the worst thing in B2C is? Add to cart to see price. No, I'm not doing that. No,
No.
I'm not doing that. I'll go to Google and look up that same product and get the price range from somewhere else before I add it to the cart. So you can chuck me in an abandonment flow.
Yeah.
That's not happening. Like, I know your games, right?
Yeah.
So just don't be a little F boy of B2B. Give them value, and just be extremely clear. Do not write above an 8th grade level.
No.
Do not. It does not matter how smart your audience is. People retain information a lot better if you're talking to them in a story format and in language that's not trying to sound too smart.
That's really great advice. Head over to Amazon and look at a product page and see if you...
Actually, I got that idea from Anthony Pieri, so I can't even take credit for that. But he had posted about it one time. I was like, oh, that's right. Like, I look at all of those things before I purchase something on Amazon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Taz, if you've said so many great things about landing pages here, if people want to have your consultancy service or have a dialogue with you, what paths should they follow?
Just find me on LinkedIn. I see a lot of unhinged things on there. So if you don't come for landing pages, come for entertainment. I also have a landing page resource hub that's free, and it's all categorized by landing pages or paid ads or whatever. So you can go in there and do a lot of like DIY stuff. Some of the stuff I talked about here is like more tactical and broken down in steps there. I'm also coming out with a landing page swipe file, because people have been asking me for a collection of landing pages because they're hard to find. So that'll be also there and also free. You don't have to comment ratchet landing pages or whatever. I mean, you know what? It's funny. I should actually make people comment something completely ridiculous and see if they actually say it on there. You know, and then we'll see what people have. So no funny words. Just come get good landing page content, and if you want to talk to me, just send me a message.
That's great. Everyone, go follow Taz on LinkedIn and connect with her. That's it, Taz. This has been super duper wonderful, and I think this is a really good education in what to do about B2B landing pages. To everyone who's been listening, if you like Taz, if you like the conversation, go search for Attributed where you listen to podcasts and give us a follow. We'll be very happy about that. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and stay tuned for Taz coming out on a podcast later on.
Yay!
Taz, thank you so much for now.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everyone who came.